Scarlet Nexus, trademark, is a game where you play as an anime boy or girl depending on your sexuality. You can choose either Yuito Sandbagger or Kasane Rainmaker as you use your psycho power depending on your IQ. You play with a decent cast of characters, all there purely for your convenience. And as you know, I only associate with people I can benefit from. You'll travel through multiple cities, many of which are destroyed by your average Sword Art Online fan. Everyone is connected using the SAS, or as I like to call it, the SAS, where they inject wires into your body that are stronger than 10 shots of heroin. These make our protagonists feel cooked out of their mind and give them access to the Black Force. Moving through the game, you encounter a variety of what most Gen Z kids refer to themselves as others. The others are the average Gen Z teenager looking for something new to sexually identify as, and are also extremely horny for you. I will be calling them disease for that reason. If you start a fight with one, finish it, otherwise you'll be cancelled for rejecting sexuality. Some are easy, while others will make you consider bombing an orphanage. You'll also have the Karen hunting you because you don't use Heinz ketchup. You have access to Killer Queen and don't know how to use Bites the Dust. Karen is jealous of this and wants to steal it to unlock the Requiem. Because of your protagonist's ideals, by default you don't agree. You will see a religion but reject them because forgiveness isn't granted by religion. The moon is also important, but you'll know about that later. During this story, you will be forced to join the civil war between Seattle and Saudi Arabia, while the Catholic Church joins in. I ask that you don't take the things I say seriously, but only as entertainment. So watch as I travel into the despair that is the Nexus. Against my better insanity, I will be going through both sides of the story, so prepare to be spoiled. Now strap into your electric chair as we go through the PowerPoint and the ever-changing mental trauma into the aversion that will guarantee you a brain tumor. To start Scarlet Nexus, we changed the language to Japanese because no one plays anime games in English. If you do, you're stupid. You first need to learn the movement by running around and using your legs like a human. You can evade by pressing the button you have it on. The passives are the areas where you can take side quests. These areas are called Seattle, Saudi Arabia, Musubis, and the OSF Trade Center. In the passives, you can take on side quests, which I do not recommend unless you plan to grind, which you should only do at a certain point. The aggressives are literally everywhere else, and in the aggressives are Z's. Unsurprisingly, they won't. You use your buttons and brain power to attack the Z's while doing aggressive arts and crafts with them. You have light, heavy, and brain attacks. You will mainly use light and brain attacks to combo into heavies. You can increase these abilities by upgrading the IQ zone. The upgrades are called brain points, but I call them my IQ. You'll almost always have 0. The most powerful ability you have is the brain drive. You put on your hood and turn goggles. You move and attack faster, are swoller, and have higher defense. But that's not why it's good. It's good because you get to use the brain field. If you get the right upgrades like a smart person, the brain field makes you completely invincible. You attain this power by injecting 50 pounds of weed cane, 10 pounds of opioids, and 5 gallons of Tide Pods. But naturally, this power is limited as it kills you if you use it too long. But as a Gen Z, that's what we want. Unfortunately, we can't beat the game like this. We cancel it before we die so we can abuse ourselves even more. There are different types of Z's, each with unique abilities. The Ninja Turtles, Pounds, Pools, Birds, Rummies, Paws, Ruts, Santas, Sabbats, Chineries, and then this. The yawns try to make you permanently tired. Rummies are the Gen Z teenage woman and do absolutely nothing. Paws are easy, but this one is annoying. Pools suck. The birds fly and are annoying. The Ruts are weak. Santas give you unwanted presents. Sabbats are horses. Chineries are strong and annoying. Pounds fly and are annoying, but are the most unique. The Session Pound is a terrorist. The Missing Pound is Snoop Dogg, and the Cushion Pound is Dwayne Johnson. You will have a mechanic called Brain Crush where you rip into their skin to break their light bulbs. The first time you do a Brain Crush on a type of Z, you will get a unique animation. Almost every other time you will get the same fucking one. You can even do a Brain Crush on the human enemies you fight where you also have no varying animations. This game is very selective budget. This is noticeable during cutscenes with how the majority are slideshows, but they constantly swap to actual animation and vice versa. It's awakening my PTSD back to X-Arm. Who in God's name thought this was a good idea? For the two degenerate teams, we have Yuito Platoon, and Kasane Platoon. Let's start with Yuito Platoon. For this platoon, we have Mr. Protagonist himself with the power of plot armor and friendship to abuse the game with while using his sword, forming aggressive patterns. Hanabi Ichijo, the fiery childhood friend who will stand by your side while committing arson because that's what they're made for. Gemma Garrison, the boomer doomer who can become invincible when he hardens himself almost as much as me whenever I see Aka. Tsugumi Nazara, the all-seeing school shooter with the borderline most useful sass in the game. By using it, we unlock the Sharingan. Luca Travers, the short abusive one of Yuito Plantation who uses his height to contribute to his inferiority complex. Moving on to Kasane Platoon. Here we have Miss Protagonist who is more apathetic than Mr. She instead wields knives that she shoots using the power of Sigma. Shiden Ritter, codenamed Shitter, is the overconfident 4-eyes of the game who also has an inferiority complex. Arashi Spring, the hyper fangirl who imitates every anime swordsman ever. Hyoka Eden, the overprotective mom of the group and also Yuito's stalker. She can also make shadow clones, meaning that she is a Naruto fangirl. She is the fan service. She is definitely that type of woman that believes in zodiac signs. Lastly, we have Kagero Don, who is the invisible man that holds a dagger to assassinate people. He is also the most useless SAS in the game, or so I thought. For some unknown reason, he always has his arm crossed, even when running. There is a reviving mechanic that your teammates can perform on you, but you will never see that because you should never die. There's an overabundance of money to get, and you can spam buy healing items. If you somehow die, immediately uninstall. Your allies give you access to use their SAS ability, which blows your back out every time you use them. I would mention Water, but he literally does nothing. Your allies give you the ability to use fire, shadow clones, lightning, stealth, hardness, speed, instant transmission, omnipotence, and even more cycle power. Another thing you can do with your allies is called bond episodes. The game is split into 12 different phases, with 11 of them having standbys. The bond episodes are optional, but essentially requires the abilities you get from them are good. Doing the confidant links lets you become more intimate with some of your teammates, maybe even a little too intimate. Doing these gives you new side effects for accessing the Black Force, such as more shadow clones and longer ability durations. Team bonds are episodes that happen as a team. All it does is unlock a white outfit to use for variation. Now let's get into the plot of the game. Starting with Yuito. The game first shows you a cutscene of a woman who looks oddly like Kasane. It's probably a coincidence. After that, you stand next to other soldiers on death row where you get injected with X Factor and unlock your Sharingan. You reunite with your best friend Nagi after the tutorial that is totally skippable. After this point, you get shown an awesome anime intro. However, the city of Suo is attacked by the Z's and you have to fight them off. That is when you first meet Kasane. You kill the Z and the crows show up. The crows are the press of the game and are annoying, just like in real life. You meet Kasane's sister and have the short man teleport you. You go to the HQ and meet the Karen. The Karen is the strongest character in the game, excluding our protagonist, for plot reasons. He compliments you and makes you feel confident in yourself. Shortly after, there's a distress signal and you have to travel to Siberia. In Siberia, you meet Arashi and Gemma and take down Asabe. You then go to the hideout. This is where the first standby phase starts. To end the standby phase, Kasane must perform a background check on you and learn your fetishes. She mentions the Randall Industries. Kasane isn't attracted to you at this point in the game. There's one other person we all know with the name Randall so far. Connect the dots. On this topic, pay close attention to the characters with no drip and wires on them. It's not foreshadowing at all, I promise you. After you kill some Z's, the standby phase ends. You start a group exercise and on your team is Kagero and Shitter. Shitter hates you because you're a Sumeragi, which we find out later. This is where you are introduced to the most useless SASs in Yuito's story. We have our first fight against a human here, and notice the brain crush is the exact same. With teammates, the animation slightly changes, but nothing special. The game literally just does not change the animation on human enemies. It's clear to us where their budget didn't go. Truly a shame, but it is anime. We complete the training exercise and are appreciated by everyone but Shitter. He's your hater, but you're better, which is why you don't want to associate with him. We move to the subway where we meet the Ninja Turtles. This is also where we first unlock the brain drive. You speedrun the subway and meet up with other OSF soldiers. Naomi shows you her power and lack of drip. There's a pattern that will start shortly. Considering there's a save point right here, I'll let you guess what happens. We fight some Z's and everyone is okay, except for Naomi. She has PTSD flash forwards of Kasane getting shot. In classic anime fashion, she pushes her out of the way instead of tackling so they can both not be hit. After being shot, she questions if there's really only two genders and the true purpose of gender roles. She resorts to finding the answers on Twitter. So then she shatters her humanity and becomes a Z. We have to fight against her, but her sister Complex stops us from killing her. She chases after the feds and you follow her with the boomer. You see her talking to Karen and hide drugs inside a stuffed toy. You go back to the base to tell everyone Naomi is dead. You are now ostracized permanently. You then travel to Chicago. Nothing interesting happens here, so I'm skipping to where you fight Karen. Luca tries to fight Karen, but gets bodied via PowerPoint presentation. In classic anime fashion, we're put in a fight we're not meant to win. We then find Nagi on the ground, dead. Kasane shows up and we fight the first Chinese Z of the game. We conversate with Kasane and then Nagi attacks us. It's almost like this was foreshadowed. Seto then dies because of a lack of drip. Naomi also dies due to lack of drip. Nagi also has no drip. Do you see a pattern? We travel with Kasane to a place and watch Yakumo Sumeragi get assassinated. Our protagonist's last name is also Sumeragi. The plot is thickening. We leave the place and call a truce with Gemma. After standby phase 3, we go back to Cielo, which is taken over by Z's. We speedrun to the OSF base because our dad is attacked. There, we see Kasane holding a knife above his body. We assume she killed him and overdosed on heroin. We now have the brain field. We fight Kasane and then she leaves. Yuito starts having more strokes, so we send him to the trade center to give him the kush. While we're there, we meet our first dud of the game. This is important. We travel to the remains of the Twin Towers after hearing about some suspicious activity. We run into Nagi, and it's obvious he's being controlled. But protagonistically, we don't want to leave him. Nagi has Luca teleport us to France to have some pizza. We leave the place only to end up fighting Kasane crew. After the fight, we have a new character introduced to us that we literally never see for the rest of the game in Yuito's story. We go to the construction site to find Saudis only for Yuito to end up having a stroke. He drinks PCP and gains record-breaking IQ levels. We head to an abandoned area where trucks are driving by. Kagero and Kyoko meet us here. Now we could have fought them, but I wanted to let them have no fun. When they run, We head to where the trucks went. We arrived at the surf. In a failed break-in attempt, we were noticed. Luca restrained the man. Tsugumi shows him she's packing heat, and Gamma steals his Jordans. A classic hood combo. We go through and get keys to unlock things, and after we unlock things, we find Kasane again. I can't imagine having to fight her again. She tells us the facility creates drugs out of human brains for Z's. After this drive-by, we head back to the remains of 9/11 to find Nagi and fight him. We win the actual fight, but lose in the cutscene. Why does anime do this? He has a flashback involving Mama Sumeragi talking about experimenting. To our surprise, we were kidnapped and taken to an experimental room. Yuito is told he used to be a dud, and that's why he's having strokes. Fubuki saves us, and when we attempt to leave, we meet Karen on the way out. When we get back to the hideout, Yuito announces he was a dud. The team sucks you off as they're meant to, so don't feel bad about it. Now it's time for us to get religion so we're granted forgiveness. This place sucks for many reasons. You have to break through ice constantly. You're almost always in an area with terrorists, and it takes a long time to actually get to Togetsu from the bottom. Even by speedrunning everything, it takes 10 minutes and sometimes even more because of this last fight. The terrorists are the most annoying enemy here because of how common they are. They're a part of almost every fight. You can't use fire on them because what happens when explosives and fire go together? They do however play this song when they lock onto you. The game literally calls that noise a song. As annoying as they can be, they are the freest XP you get in this game. Once we finally get to Togetsu, they're expecting us. That doesn't concern us at all. From here, the game drops a huge info dump on you so large the game has your team recap it with you to hope you understand. We go to these terminals with books and someone appears that looks very similar to Kyoka. Her name is the Pope. Kyoka was a design child based on the Pope, but the Pope died 2,000 years in the past. At the terminals, we're told about the origin of humans on the moon, Yakumo Sumeragi, the extinction belt in the Z's, and the Kun Atoll. Humans immigrated to the moon because of Earth's poor condition and tried fixing it from the moon. When it was stable, a group called the Ark was sent from the moon back to Earth, with the leader being Yakumo Sumeragi. The extinction belt appeared when the group reached Earth and prevented any contact back with the moon. The extinction belt was said to create Z's, but Z's didn't appear until long after. Then with the Kun Atoll, it gets bigger and sucks things in. Killing Yuito is the only way to stop it. We are in phase 8 of a 12-phase game. When we go to Babe for information on the Z's, they try to take over our brain. Kasane says hi, and Lucas saves us from dying. Apparently, Kasane platoon got captured and they want us to help. Lucas sets off the alarm, freeing them. On our way out, Yuito attacks one of the followers and has Kasane's face. That leads us to assume Kasane is also a design child. Skating away from Togetsu, we have to fight an enemy. We beat it and meet with Kasane. We tell each other what we know, and she tells us she was trying to kill Yuito because future Yuito asked her to. We apparently don't use psychokinesis, but gravikinesis, and that's what lets us use the red string. The groups exchange information. It's confirmed the only known way currently is to kill Yuito to get rid of the Kunad Gate. And Kagero confirms the moon stories are real because he's a moon colonist. Finally, 3/4 into the game, we unlock Saudi Arabia. We have our first team bond with Yuito platoon. Hanabi sees a cockroach, and as most women do when they see one, she overreacts. Starting phase 9, we go back to Seattle to meet with Yuito's older brother, Kyle. Before that, Nagi shows up and oh my god, he has drip. Unfortunately, it's too late into the game for that as he gets 86. Now the team goes to meet Kyle. He goes on his villain monologue about carrying the legacy of Yakumo's wishes after the moon. He also talks about how he used Nagi and plans to use the people for his goal. Just some classic familial disagreement that has never once happened in anime. When we leave, Wataru tells us to go to the safe zone. Apparently, he ended up recording the entire conversation to cancel the government. This is the only useful thing he does in this game. To cancel Kyle, we head to Arahabuki. Nothing interesting happens here until the end. It is here where we send a message to the people. Unfortunately, Karen is here to ruin our fun. We fight and lose because plot needs to advance somehow. He controls Arahabuki to use Yuito's power and activates Bites the Dust. This causes Yuito to almost lose himself, but with our powers combined, the power of friendship will always win. So he's not dead. I'm switching to Kasane's side of the story here. You'll know why later. As we start Kasane's story, we see someone familiar. It's Yuito from the future, and he's in a destroyed world. He tells someone to kill him through Bites the Dust, and we enter the start of her story. We start off similarly with our protagonist being with the closest person to them. Just like Yuito, we awaken a Sharingan and play through the tutorial that doesn't matter. We see Naomi afterwards to head to Sumeragi Tomb. Naomi finds Yuito attractive and Kasane's like, no Lomao. Next is the Z invasion with a different cutscene to introduce Yuito and Nagi. We go back into the OSF base and are introduced to Kyoka Platoon. The introductions are relatively similar and Shitter is the same hater he's always been. He's also racist. We are sent to Minnesota for our first mission and we get access to areas that we didn't in Yuito's story. This is where the true Kasane experience starts because we can actually fight in the air. We fight a big Z and get harassed by OnlyFans subscribers, only for Arashi to steal them. We return from the mission to report to Haruka and run into Kodama early in the game, if only they made her more relevant. Kagero sends an emergency help call and we go while not bringing Naomi. Why? Plot says because the Randos asked her to, but actually because she's not usable. Remember, if they don't have the wire drip, they suck. Heading to the New York parking garage, we are introduced to Kyoka's ability and Kasane's Brain Crush. Sadly, they're more or less the same as Yuito's. Kasane and Kyoka meet up with Kagero and fight a Z. Kagero tells us that he left Seto alone and we should find him. We leave the underground to go to the surface where things are even worse. Shortly, we see Seto fighting Z's, and as he's a September man, he kills them. A Z shows up below Kasane's feet and he's completely oblivious. Seto saves her with the power of a cutscene, and this is how we're introduced to Kasane's hideout. While we're here, the Bond episode with Yuito appears, and you do it because you're dumb if you don't. It's the exact same as Yuito's first Bond with Kasane, except from the side of a woman. I would also like to say that Yuito is the best looking sass animation. Moving on to phase 2, the tuning exam arc begins. As you may have seen on Yuito's side, Kasane gets partnered with Hanabi and Tsugumi. It goes the same as we wait at the end for Yuito's team to steal the flag. We fight Yuito, kill him, win, challenge over. Next is to the subway of the Ninja Turtles, just like in Yuito's story. Everything here goes the exact same, except Kasane has a dream about the ragged strings while Yuito fights Naomi. This time after Naomi gets stolen, we meet with Karen. He tells us the lowdown on why we should trust the Saudis, and why we shouldn't trust Seattle. Kasane goes to find Shitter like the lost child that he is. Kodama shows up and we fight her. I was actually glad she got screen time because of the one time we saw her in Yuito's story. After she gets absolutely clapped, Fubuki shows up and tells us to stop. After this break, Kasane goes back to Seattle and is being followed by Shitter for some reason. He leaves us. We see a man with a Versace bag and wants to steal it from him. Unfortunately, it leads us right to Karen and we get kidnapped. When we wake up, we have to fight Shitter. Her fate is trash and so are your weapons, and get in the gym. Luca, Kyoka, and Arashi appear to tell us that Karen's been hitting some devious licks at Chicago. We go there to confront him. From this point until after the Chinary fight, it's almost the exact same as Yuito's side. When we find ourselves in the Shadow Realm with Yuito, we get extra cutscene for plot reasons. We grab the string and destroy the world because it's time travel. We wake up at the Kunat hole with Shitter, Kyoka, and Arashi. They think that this is dangerous to our existence. I wonder where you got that idea. The squad goes back to what they think is Seattle, only to be greeted by an even more emo Karen and dead Fubuki. Karen rants about curing people turned into Z's and tries to make us see the light. Because he sucked our power from us, we chase him down with a vengeance. On the way, we meet our blind Samuragi that attacks us for no reason. He recognizes the people when Kasane tells him to chill. We start conversating, then everyone but Kasane is taken back to the past. Kasane follows Yuito and tells us the story of kill him or the world ends. He then pulls your Gen Z teenager and deaths himself. We return to the present and head to the hideout to tell the people what happened. We now enter phase 5, but before that, we had the Musubi's. The reason being is that if you pay attention to her DMs, you have to put in special codes to unlock accessories in the game by watching the actual anime. I definitely didn't look them all up on the internet because what type of content creator would I be if I cheated? The rewards you get from the codes are accessories and poster versions which look stupid on the character, but the design on them looks very cool. They also added a feature where you can have weapon skins now, so that's nice. As we start phase 5, Kasane's squad goes to an abandoned Seattle because of the rebellion. They fight the NDF and see a counselor that knows about the metamorphosis. He tells us that the chairman, who's conveniently Yuito's dad, runs the research. When we get to the HQ, we already see him dying by Kagero. Tragically, Yuito shows up and we have that fight and unlock Kasane's brain field. After Karen gives his I have a dream speech, we leave to find Kagero. We go talk to him about the Kunat hole and Shitter almost blows our cover. Next we go to Chicago and Karen already knows we activated Bites the Dust. He also tells us that Naomi's being confined in a lab that's really the Natural Gender Bent Museum. We go through and fight a thing that gave me more trouble than it should have. When we beat the thing, we enter Arkham Asylum and find Naomi. We talk to her only to leave and Karen was stalking us the entire time. He tells us to stand by in Saudi Arabia when a man asks us to assassinate Yuito. We attempt it, but Kodama says no now. He's the protagonist, so we return to the hideout and everyone beams Kasane for trying to kill Yuito. Now our objective is to suppress Z's when we really end up killing Kodama again. This is when Kagero and Kyoka attack Yuito's squad in his side. When they leave, we ride the whip to the lab and run some kids over on the way. We take the brains of those children and put them in these boxes for the Z experiments. We go to fight Yuito platoon when they show up and have the talk. Afterwards, Kasane goes to check on Naomi while she's having a breakdown over the drugs. If only rejected cancel culture things wouldn't be like this. Karen lectures us again because he thinks he's that guy. Now we head to Togetsu for the laziest reason possible. Once we get there, we climb the mountain, and when we get inside the church, we are kidnapped. Also, Kyoka betrayed us. Kasane has flashbacks to her childhood and why they needed Bites the Dust. Kagero saves us, sees Yuito's squad, and we free Shitter and Arashi. We escape to fight Kyoka, who is more difficult than she should have been. She talks about how she was once the Pope but left that lifestyle behind. We forgive her because anime and go to exchange information with the Yuito platoon. After we go back to the hideout, Haruka senses the Z's being sent to Minnesota and Naomi is there. The sister complex impulse of Kasane has her go there, where we see Kodama and Fubuki, who isn't Fubuki but is Kodama's sister, Yuta. We kill them and the Catholics show up. This is when Naomi has this cool scene of her defending Kasane's squad. After that, Naomi has her tragic death scene and Kasane cries, but then Arashi sees Karen, who's watching Alice die. He then becomes enraged and sucks our power from us and is going to suck Yuito next. This is where we enter our Habaki. I definitely didn't want to kill myself going through here. We fight a boss and go save Yuito. This is when he got lost in the sauce and could not return on his own. That's when we connected with his brain to teach him about the power of Black Air Forces. After he gets his memory back, the next cutscenes are the same except we go to Kasane's hideout. Before I start this segment, from this point on, both sides of the story, everything is the exact same except from the said Protag's POV, so I'll be mostly talking from Yuito's side for my personal convenience. Once both teams meet and understand Karen's true goal, we then merge platoons to become the Soul Society. For the rest of the game, you should always see these 4 abilities on your screen at the start of almost every fight. These are the most useful assassins you'll be able to use. You can also finish the contradicting Bond episodes for the side that you didn't choose, but who really cares for those? Now you may have noticed the position of characters in the loading screens before groups combine. They seem displaced, but now we are Legion. Starting phase 10, Kagero asks Yuito to follow him to Kikuchiba. He tells us that he killed our dad and now we fight him for the truth of why. After thrashing him, we go to Togetsu, but because our protagonist is a dud, they get concerned about his power spike and that he'll lose them, but he chooses not to worry about it. Kagero turns the whole squad invisible and we enter Togetsu. We get attacked and Luca teleports us to Babe. Just like the Arahabiki in Seattle, Babe is a supercomputer for religion. When was religion ever this advanced? Never. Moving on, we go through the Babe as aggressively as possible. When we get to the top, we are met with an illusion of Yuito's mom, who's apparently also Kasane's mom. She tries to sweet talk us, but we're better than that. The next room you run into is not fun. You have to fight the greatest Z to ever exist. I call it the Canceller. To our surprise, we aren't allowed to fight it. I can never imagine why. Like most running segments in video games, you have to survive and not die. If you fall, you die, so don't do that. The Canceller shoots its goo, attempting to knock us off. With our powers of friendship, we somehow kill it, I think. We get inside Babe, and its data is sent to Wakana in the past through the red strings. Knowing this, we go to the hole to use them and send Kasane to meet Wakana. We get to see a small Yuito and MILF Wakana. We go back to the present to find out Kasane brought Wakana with her. We tell her about what happened and head back to the hole. She then tells us to enter it to unravel entanglements. While unraveling, we witness the face of the man who killed Yakumo, and big surprise, it was Karen. We have strokes and are forced to exit the hole. When we wake up, Wakana starts hugging us and saying foreshadowing things. You should know where this leads in the context of anime. After this scene, Arashi questions why the hole isn't clenching. Unsurprisingly, it has to do with the death of Yakumo, and Karen has seemed to take his place. This made an entanglement we have to force him to get rid of. We finally enter the last standby phase of the game, 11. I didn't know I could count that high. Now, we finally enter the final phase 12 of the story. This game is really long, huh? We enter the tomb after having a slight sibling rivalry moment and walk downstairs. We get close to the center of our Habaki and get put inside a field where we see Karen's old hallucinations. He introduces flashbacks of Hanabi's Aunt Alice before she died. While in this world, we travel through all of the aggressors we've been through. Once you reach the end of this portion, you have to fight what is the most annoying fight of the game. This felt harder than the final boss of the game. The first phase is an Instagram model who constantly DMs you to send you nudes. Phase 2 is a Redditor, and Phase 3 is a Discord admin. Individually, they all suck. It's Phase 4 where you will want to die. For 90% of it, the Z is immune to any damage, and unless you get close enough to be hit, it almost never attacks. Here's where you abuse the Brain Field's invincibility if you've unlocked it. If it's not unlocked by this point in the game, you've been playing wrong. Once we do defeat it, we move to the rest of the area to finally reach Karen. We see him open the core of our Habaki to find Yakumo, who's really Karen. Because he meets himself, he gets sucked by himself. That's some real talent. He now has a plot power buff and we fight. This is phase 1 of 2 because what video game final boss only has one phase? Somehow they made the first phase more difficult than the second. But for phase 1, it's just a regular fight. Run around but don't get hit, but hit him. Simple enough. Phase 2 is even simpler, but not before you get absolutely styled on by the Pillar Men. That might be the coldest phase 2 transition I've seen in a while. The Pillar Men send down things that you have to attack. When you break them, you throw the rocks at the mask and then have to break the mask to attack Karen. This can easily be 2-cycled if you're good enough at the game. When we beat him, he sends us to the dark world of Tampa, Florida. We lost all of our friends and had to deal with Karen alone until our crew ex machina into existence. We get shown sequences of their sass activating as well as their own special animation sequences as we fight Karen off. He gets a slight bit mad and tries to take our power again. Fortunately, Kasane does a team attack with Yuito and hits quite the devious lick on him. We finally end the fight by doing a spirit bomb in the form of a Lego brick. We are sent back to Arahabaki and Fubiki talk no jutsu's Karen into being passive. Following this, we head to the hole to absorb the extinction belt and close it. While playing through this portion, you'll realize they spent the rest of their budget here. While Yuito and Kasane work on closing the hole, Karen mumbles to himself. He betrays you by hitting you with the classic Godam Lamau. Now that he has bites the Just Requiem, he launches an attack on Algeria and destroys it. After the completely justified attack, he creates the Council of Karen with a C. This action causes him to disappear from existence and resurrect his waifu. God, I hate saying that word. Because of plot, only our people remember it. We then reach the end where we go to mourn his grave months later. We have the option to speak with everyone, but don't. Fubuki shows up and we honor Karen. Yuito and Kasane have a small talk, we leave, and the game ends. Regardless of how much BS I've said from however much time has passed, this game is great. It's probably the best anime JRPG game I've played since Persona 5 Royal and Strikers. They just don't make them like they used to. The gameplay is enjoyable and it has an actually interesting story. Some of the fights actually gave a relative challenge. The characters have awesome design, you can combine their abilities in different ways. The anime cutscenes, excluding the slideshows of course. I know the animation budget is probably expensive, but would it have hurt to at least make the conversations 3D like in Persona? I know that's asking a bit much from Bandai of all people. people. But given they did have cooperation with Bandai, it did have a lot of recycled animation. Enough of my slandering of Japan. The music, the scenery, the voice acting, it's all so well done. It led to a great investment of my time, even though making this video took me a lot longer than it should have. Will they add DLC? I hope not, because then I'd have to cover that too. There's also an anime for the game that isn't complete at the time I'm recording this, but the opening for the game and anime were made by the Oral Cigarettes, who also made Hey Kiss from Noragami Arigoto. They just don't miss. And I do expect half-decent things from this anime. This video idea was inspired by Maxwell. Had I not watched this style of videos, this wouldn't have been made by me. This is definitely the hardest I've worked on a video up to this point, so I really hope you enjoyed. And remember, have your children commit your crimes for you.